Okay.
Hey, Emily.
Maggie?
How are you?
Oh, pretty good. This feels like very 2020, us back in our home spaces. How thrilling.
I know, right?
All right, so we warned you last week we have a really special guest today, and he's here, he's in the waiting room, and so we'll bring him on, but this is season 3, episode 20, which means it is the final episode of season 3.
Dun, dun, dun.
And what we have coming for you in season 4 is, well, why don't you say a word about it, Maggie?
Sure, it's a bit of a change. So my understanding, at least since I wasn't around for the beginning of the Soulcast, is that the Soulcast was meant to do two things. One, like keep a connection between people and the church and what's going on, and also to keep people up to date on the latest like information, COVID regulations, announcements, that sort of thing. However, now that we are meeting in person, that latter part isn't as necessary because you can read the announcements in the Pathfinder. If you're not there in person, you can hear them on the live stream, and you can also hear them in person or receive them on the blue sheet when you come to worship. So we're shifting gears a little bit with the Soulcast and the direction that we're going for season 4.
We are. So what you're going to see a lot more of is getting to know you sort of stuff. So we'll bring a lot more All Soulsians on here, spend more time swapping stories, and getting to know each other.
Yeah, a little bit of a deeper dive, some storytelling about the church and the people in the church. So,
all right, let's bring him on.
Great.
And hear what he has to say. Hey, Scott.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks.
Thanks for joining us on the Soulcast today.
Sure, my pleasure.
Are you at your office or your home office?
I'm up at CDSP at my office. Yeah.
All right, Scott. Well, we brought you on because we heard that you took on a new role.
Yes.
With the House of Deputies.
Yes.
So I don't know what that is. So you can first maybe give us there's probably other people who don't.
Sure.
Probably. But then we want to know what the role was, what's exciting about it for you, and kind of what you're going to do in that capacity.
So back when the Episcopal Church was becoming itself, as opposed to the Church of England in the United States, at the time that the Revolution had ended, and a decision was made that we weren't just going to not have the Church of England in the United States anymore, but we wanted to make it American, right? So there was an attempt to align the church as it was practiced previously with the values of the country as it was emerging. And one of the big, one of the major points of consonance between the Episcopal Church, what would become the Episcopal Church, and the new United States was a bicameral legislature for governing the church. And so the church has two houses that it sounds, you'll recognize this, it sounds like the Senate and the House of Representatives. It's the House of Bishops, which is pretty self-explanatory, but the thing to know about that is it's only the bishops with jurisdiction. So they must be the bishop of a diocese. That's with a charge, right? No, not retired bishops and so forth. So that's one house. The other house is the House of Deputies, and deputies are those who are elected by their diocese to represent that diocese at the General Convention of the Church. So they're people who go to represent your interests as a specific location and a specific worshiping community. This is why it's really important to remember, as the Episcopal Church, that the smallest denomination, or the smallest unit that we would call the local church, is not the parish, it's the diocese. And people really, really forget that, and they think of their local church as the church that they go to, and that's actually not true. You're a member of your diocese, and that's what the Episcopal Church is really organized around, is your diocese, and that's very all churches with Episcopal polities, those that have bishops, are organized around dioceses, and your diocese is your church. And the parish, actually, it's really interesting to think about it this way. When the parish celebrates Eucharist, what the parish is celebrating is the bishop's Eucharist celebrated at the cathedral. But they're celebrating a local instance of the bishop's Eucharist, deputed to do that by power of the bishop. That's the point of the bishop, providing the power to the presbyter in the locale to celebrate Eucharist. They're celebrating the bishop's Eucharist.
I see.
So we need to really, I think, in our church, get a much more robust understanding of our diocesan identity. We're members of the Diocese of California, and that's really, really important for our identity. So the House of Deputies is a house that's comprised of elected officials, the elected representatives that are called deputies, that go to the General Convention. And they must be lay people or deacons or presbyters, priests. They cannot be bishops. So you have church-wide representation by order at the I hate to use the word legislation, but that's what it is. At the legislative level of the church, you have wide and broad representation, which is another important ecclesiological principle. It's something that we take very seriously. We call that dispersed authority. And the power in the Episcopal Church is not just in the hands of bishops, it's in the hands of all of us. And by design, not because we usurp the power of the bishop or something, but it's by design, so that we are all involved in the way that our church functions. And that's because there was an understanding very early on in Anglican history, not just American Episcopal history, but in Anglican history, that the wisdom of the Christian life is resident across the body of Christ, not just at the top levels of a hierarchy. There is a hierarchy, and that's important to understand, and we sometimes rub up uncomfortably against that hierarchy. At the same time, the hierarchy is not a top-down authoritarian hierarchy. It's relational. It's about buy-in and about pastoral care and about listening to the voices of those for whom one has pastoral care. So it's very bi-directional, and that's also baked into the understanding of this bicameral legislature, because the House of Deputies can do nothing without the concurrence of the House of Bishops, and vice versa, not just one direction, but in both directions. So you can introduce legislation in either house, but the other house must adopt it, and they must adopt the same language. They can't change it without it going back to that house for approval of the amended version. So it's very, I'm not trying to idealize this by saying it's not difficult and fraught. It is, but it's also got a sense of equality that's designed into the ecclesiological imagination of the church as it began to develop. And that's really, really important. So what I've been asked to do is the House of Bishops has had a theology committee for quite some time, made up of bishops and made up of other people they've invited to be members of that committee, who have expertise in theological matters. The House of Deputies has not. And part of that is because there's been this understanding, which you will recognize as a kind of creeping clericalism, that says deputies don't need theologians. They don't do theological work. They just do governance work, as if those are two different things. And my job, when the president of the House of Deputies, Gay Clark Jennings, asked me to be the first theologian to the House of Deputies, is to help the deputies understand that what they're doing in doing governance is in no way mere governance. Governance is theology. That is theology. And so having because we don't do governance the way the Congress does governance with, ideally, we do it differently. And why, and for what purpose, and what kinds of decisions are we making, and all of those kinds of things. Those are theological questions at the end of the day. Just like being on the vestry is not the same as sitting on a corporate board. It's theological work. It's real, or even a nonprofit board. It's theological work, and that's really, really important. So that's one thing I'm tasked with doing, is helping the deputies think through more carefully and clearly and with deliberation what it means to do the work of a deputy from a theological perspective, rather than from another kind of model of exercising governance or authority or power. Anyway, that's what I'm in general tasked with doing.
Wow. Any other questions, Maggie?
Do you think the deputies are like ready to engage on that deeper level, or?
Yes. So my understanding first of all, the interaction that we had on that seminar was fantastic, and people were really, really jazzed up. I think for a lot of people it's intimidating, but it's also really, really empowering also, in a way that this is ministry. When you're serving as a deputy to the Episcopal Church's General Convention, that's a ministerial function. You're ministering to the church with your skills, your time, and your talents, and that's important work. And yes, I'm very excited about that, because my way back to Christianity was through theology. And my understanding about this discipline is that what it has to offer the Christian life is just that. It builds up the Christian life, not just the mind, but the whole lived life of being a disciple of Jesus Christ. And so to be able to talk with the deputies about the fact that what they are doing theologically is a component of a larger life that includes the way they conceptualize their relationship with God, which is what theology in the technical sense really is all about, the more I'm actually living out my own vocation in a really important way. So yes, I'm very excited.
You can probably just say thank you, and what a gift you are to all of us, and to this big old church that we're.
Well, thank you. I hope so. I certainly feel the honor and the weight of being asked to do this, and it's super meaningful to me.
Well, you make it all seem really hopeful. So
totally,
we'll see.
Something in this world.
Thank you. I hope that's the case. Yeah. I think it should be. I think that what's going to come out of General Convention 2022 should be energizing for all of us.
Well, there it is. Let's stop there.
Yes, you heard it here first, folks.
All right, thanks, Scott.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
So to find out what's on tap, refer to your blue sheet and in-church announcements henceforth.
And the Pathfinder.
And the Pathfinder, as always.
You have 3 different other modes of finding out what's going on this week.
Yeah. So this is pure entertainment value henceforth. That's all it is.
Let's hope we can succeed, Maggie.
Yes.
We need your help. So if you want to be on the Soulcast,
yes,
get in touch with us.
We're going to need more costumes with this new creative direction.
Are we?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Season 3, episode 20. That's it. That's the wrap. That's the whole season.
Yeah. Stay tuned for season 4.
Woo!
Bye.
Bye.